Alright, Conquest for the Planet of the Apes. We've kind of reached the more negative side of the Planet of the Apes franchise up until this point. See, up until this point, uh, these movies did pretty well. They were pretty well reviewed. People really enjoyed them. I'm not really sure how people really liked the second one because it's such a fucking bizarre movie. But whatever. We go into this movie, and this movie, while it was a success, I mean, they made a fifth one. It did kind of start to sour things, where the reviews and the reactions from the audience at the time were not very good. And this movie did have some production problems. Essentially, uh, because of what this movie is, which is the start to the Apes takeover, this movie ended up going for a darker tone, and there was supposed to be more violence. But when they were started screening it to test audiences, apparently to the MPAA, they were very close to getting an R rating, which is kind of extreme because this movie, we're talking about a movie that's made in the 70s, like 1972, I think is when this one came out. I forget, but you know what I mean? Like, so they didn't, Fox didn't want that. So there's an unrated cut that I actually think is the superior version of this movie. I only rewatched the theatrical version because I just, it's been a while since I've seen either version, so I just went with the one that was originally released. But I will tell you, the unrated version honestly is the better version, just because the unrated version has all the connectivity and pieces when it comes to that more violent setting and those more violent action sequences, some of them being cut out, makes the movie more cohesive. And it just not really. So I get why it was cut out for theatrical release, and it's not like horrible if you watch the theatrical release, but the unrated version, the better version, and more of the director's actual vision here. I don't think this movie is as bad as some people have talked it up to be over the years. I do really like the choice that Cornelius's actor Andy McDowell reprises his role as an ape, but not obviously not playing Cornelius. He plays Caesar, his character's son. It was a really smart idea, and what was really cool about it is you really do see the range of this dude as an actor, because Caesar and Cornelius have a very different manner of speaking. They're very different characters. They're not the same at all. Um, and so, but they also have similarities because they're family. That's his father. This is his son, and so it is a very captivating performance between these two movies that I think really works, and it really shows, and it really is honestly just put him on a list for me of one of my favorite actors ever, because he's just not really recognized for how great of a performance he does in these movies. Um, and yeah, the terrific performance he does is the best part of these movies. Um, this movie is all right. I think all the human characters in this movie that are on Caesar's side, you really like all those characters. They do a great job of making you want to see all the other humans die or get murked, so that when the apes eventually do rise up, it's it is supposed to be a very satisfying moment. I just think that too much of this movie is not built around that. It's very bizarre. Okay, so this movie is actually one of the shortest Planet of the Apes movies. It's only an hour and 26 minutes, which is kind of absurd because this movie needs that longer length, because this is about the beginning of the takeover. At the end of the movie, there's like, I forget the exact line, but he's like, this is the start of the Planet of the Apes or something like that. Yeah, this is the start of that. And so, like, when you get this movie that takes so long to get to where we know we're supposed to be, it's kind of awkward. I do really like this movie in some parts of it, but it does feel like the main point of this movie was a little bit lost. And maybe that's through fighting over the different ratings, and also just the unrated cut, like I said, is longer and more cohesive, so that's why it's the better version. But it's even then, it doesn't really fix how rushed the ending feels with the actual rise up. And also, I just feel like it is, I get the reason why a lot of the apes aren't talking throughout most of this movie and they're being treated like slaves and like animals. But at the same time, because of that, it doesn't make it feel a little boring where you're just like, you want to see the apes a little bit more. So there should have been more of a balance of that in this movie. But other than that, I still think this is not as bad as some people made it out to be over the years. It still works as a movie. It's just not as strong as cohesive as it should have been, and it's definitely on the lower end of the original movie. It's not the worst one. Honestly, that's between 2 and 5. We'll talk about 5 next week. Not looking forward to revisiting that one, but yeah, and then we'll move on to some of the more remakes and stuff. But I'm very excited to talk about this franchise some more. It has really reminded me why these are some of my all-time favorite movies in terms of like movie series. Let me know your thoughts, like, share, and subscribe.